Thanks for coming, everybody. Our first speaker tonight is Brian Thomas from Kvichak Marine. Kweejack started as a tiny little boat building company in Ballard in a one-car garage. And in a couple of years, they doubled in size and moved to a two-car garage. And since then, they've really grown up. And now they're still located in the ship canal in Ballard. And they ship their boats all around the world. Aluminum boats. I won't get into the boats. Brian knows about the boats. They're super cool, though. So you have, chances are you've seen them if you've looked out on the water in Seattle at some point. You just didn't know that's what you were looking at. So I'll leave it up to Brian. Thanks for coming. And here he is.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Well, it's really great to be here. I don't get a chance to speak to, I'll call it a tech audience and an art audience. That just doesn't happen. I usually get to talk to manufacturing people and elected officials and people in the boat business somehow. And we lament all about our mutual problems and challenges. So I'm expecting that most people in the audience don't know about Kvichak Marine and maybe aren't necessarily boaters or in the manufacturing world. And so maybe this will be new and different and somewhat interesting for you. I hope so. So my name is Brian Thomas. I'm one of the principals of Kweejack. We're a three-man partnership. The three of us grew up in Seattle. And well, two of us are truly Seattle natives. And one of us, Jim, is from Mercer Island. So he likes to claim he's a Washington native, but you know how protective some of us are about being a Seattle native. He's not. So, I'm going to take us through a slideshow. I have a very refined script that I like to follow to the word, and so I'd appreciate no interruptions. And no guffaws or laughter or sneezes as I go. Unless it's a brilliant question, and then save it to the end. I'm just kidding. Put your hand up if there's something, you know, if you got a question, I don't care, you can stop, because I don't have any script, so you can't throw me off. That's the beauty about not having a script. I'm completely ad-libbing. So here we go. I just love this intro. I don't know how long to hold the slide for, though. I don't know, count to 3 or count to 20, I'm not sure. Anyway, Jim on the left, a Mercer Island native, and Keith on the right. They got together in 1981. They had both been working for Marco Shipyard in San Diego. Marco is a well-known, long-time Seattle shipyard that has since closed its doors in the last 10 years. But back in the early 80s, they had a big facility down in San Diego. And Keith and Jim were transplanted by the company down to San Diego to build boats down there for Bristol Bay, Alaska, the salmon fishing industry up in Alaska. And Marco was building a run of 100+ boats, and those two guys were shipped down there by Marco to help run that program. So that's where they met. Jim's in his fishing gear on the left, and Keith is a sailor and sailing in his sailing clothes on the right. And all three of them have grown up in Seattle being sailors. We race sailboats. So their first shop was literally that little house. We call it the one-car garage. That's where the first paying job, I didn't say profitable, but paying job was undertaken in that little garage. In that little garage door. $500 fix a keel for a J24 sailboat was the very first job of the company back in 1981. And they both shared living in that house. And the house looked old back in 1981, and it's still there, and it's still rented out. Anyway, then in 1983, what did I say about the laughing and guffaw? Did I not put the kibosh on that? So, facial hair. That was a bad idea. And this look is before marijuana was legalized. I've been back east. I've been out of Seattle for 3 years doing some other crazy stuff back east, and I got a phone call from one day from Keith, and he said, "Hey, we've just been offered our little company has just been offered this sail loft, which is a sail-making sail loft from an operation in California. And you'd be the perfect guy to come back and join us in this growing company and run the sail loft part of our business. So why don't you move home? You've been gone 3 years now. It's time to come back to the Northwest and help us run this business. And I went, wow, that sounds like too good to pass up. I just can't walk away from that. So I did. I came back, and we moved out of the one-car garage into well, this is actually the third shop. I don't have a picture of the second shop. We moved into a two-car garage on Stone Way, and then a year later we moved into the six-car garage in Wallingford at the foot of Wallingford Avenue and 34th. And that's where we did the sail loft, that's Ullman Sails, and Kvichak Boat Company. And it was literally like a six-car garage, and we started doing sailboat refinishing work. And Kweejack comes from Alaska, from Bristol Bay, Alaska. The Kvichak River flows in to Bristol Bay. It's the largest salmon return river in the world. And because Jim and Keith had started fishing up there after they came back from San Diego. That's how we paid the bills for many years. So we stole the name from the Kvichak River. So we were doing sailboat refinishing work, and we were building fly bridges for the Bristol Bay gill netters, whatever we could do to make a buck. Very small projects. We built our first boat, this little boat here, a 16-foot seine skiff, and that was our first actual new construction. But we had bigger dreams than that, and so we kept going. And we repowered a gill netter for somebody. I mean, we were literally trying to rub tin nickels together, and I was running the books. I was taking care of the books. Somehow I became the money guy in the company. I had no background in it. I graduated in broadcast journalism at the University of Washington. Jim was a sliver picker, wood butcher, didn't have a college degree, and just grew up building boats. And Keith was a wannabe engineer but never finished, and somehow I ended up doing the money. Well, when you only got, $50 to keep track of, it was easy. So we were going up to Bristol Bay, Alaska, and fishing the salmon season in the summer months. Actually, it's about a 1-month fishery. And then we'd come home, and whatever shop we were in, we would sort of open the doors again. Didn't have any employees. Step back in, and we would try to do business for 9 months, and then we'd go fishing for a little while. And that's how we ran our company for about the first 6 years. And in 1985, we went up to Naknek, Alaska. Naknek is one of the big homes of all the Bristol Bay gill netters. And we built this shop with an SBA loan to do pre-season support of the Bristol Bay gill netter fleet. So we'd have a crew of 10 guys up there for 3 or 4 months, and we would do work on boats. And that was a growth in the company, and the first time we had a loan, had to make payments every month. It really sucked. But anyway, we had that building. It's on the banks of the river, which you can't see at the bottom of the picture. And then finally, in 1987, we finally got just big enough and ballsy enough to start building real boats. And we built 32-foot Bristol Bay gill netters. We went down to San Diego. Marco had finished building their big, huge run of boats, 110 or 120 boats. And we bought their jigs, and we drug them up to Seattle, and we built our first gill netter off the Marco jigs. And then our second boat we modified, we made it different from those jigs, and off we went. And we built about 35 gill netters from the late 80s to the mid-late 90s. And that was really how we got rolling. So in 1987, we also moved from that 6-car garage to a bigger building in Fremont, under the Fremont Bridge. Our stock room where we kept stuff was literally under the Fremont Bridge. So the buses would roll over, it would rake and shovel and rock and roll, and when it rained, it would drip down inside. It was quite a facility. This is the inside of that facility with 3 gill netters underway and something else in the back. We made use of every square foot. And then, one calm, sunny day in 1989. Anybody know what happened? Yeah. Oops. And the next day, we were in the oil spill response business. Diversification, right? Isn't that important? We were only in Bristol Bay doing Bristol Bay gill netters. really not knowing what we were doing. And all of a sudden, literally overnight, we were diversified. We got an order to build 6 seine skiffs, which is something we knew how to build, for Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. And they were going to use them as boom boats to help deal with the spill and all that. And then we got a chance to build a gill netter, to build an oil skimmer, a boat that actually recovers oil off the water. And that was a shot we took way back when, because we built that in 21 days, which is amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. So we built our first oil skimmer in 21 days. And since then, since that first skimmer that we built under license from Marco, they actually had the design, we've probably built about 150 of those boats since then. This is our shop at the time. In the earlier shot, it was full of gill netters, Bristol Bay gill netters, and now it's full at that point of oil spill response boats we were building for FOSS. We built a fleet of these push boats for the National Response Corporation. That's just 3 of the 12 or 15 that we built for them way back then. So that was our entree into the oil spill industry, and it was an immediate diversification for the company. And it's been a marketplace now that we've been in for 30 years, or 25 years. And just jumping ahead about 20 years, we all remember the BP Gulf spill. And one day BP called from the Gulf and said, help. And we had a chance to build and deliver 41 of our skimmers to BP in 4 months and help solve the spill problem. Well, we didn't solve the spill problem, we tried to help clean up the mess. So that's the boats before they're deployed all in a row. It reminds me of like the Blue Angels. You see pictures of the Blue Angels. I figure somebody in charge of this down in the Gulf, which is where this was a former Blue Angel guy or something, and they thought that was really cool. So anyway. So that was fun. That was the summer of 2010, and it was a time that which seems to happen for our little company, that serendipitous things sometimes just happen. And this was a moment in our time where it's the first time in 10 years that we actually had capacity. We were facing a summer of very little work, and we were nervous about it, and we were talking about layoffs, and we're going, man, we haven't been through this in a long, long time. What are we gonna do? The oil spill's going on. Why haven't they called? Because remember, it started in April. They didn't call us till July, or June. And then anyway, they finally did call. So that was good. So then in 1999, we moved into, what is that, our 5th facility or something? The 1 car, the 2 car, the 6 car, the 26 car. And then here, in 1999, we moved on to the ship canal in Fremont. Yes, we're still in Fremont, although Ballard likes to claim us. I think we're still in Fremont by 1 block. And it's a much bigger facility. It's 42,000 square feet on 2 acres. We put up this Conestoga wagon tent to give us another 4,000 feet of manufacturing space. This is a picture of us shipping a big yacht hull that we built for Delta Marine coming out of the building. So that's where we are today, and it's a facility that gives us amazing flexibility and capacity to do all kinds of different boats. So today we're building pilot boats. A pilot boat, a 75-foot pilot boat, is the first boat that we built in that new shop, and we've built a bunch of them. There's a couple of shots. That's the first one we ever built. That's the Chinook. She's down on the Columbia River with the Columbia River bar pilots, the guys that go out over the bar every day. And she's been in service since 2000. This is one of their newer boats, the Columbia. We built that about 3 years ago, coming up alongside a log ship. I thought that was kind of a cool shot. You know what a pilot boat does? Delivers the ship captain, delivers a captain out to the ship to steer the boat through the treacherous waters before the ship's captain takes over to cross the ocean. So the run boat delivers the pilot to the ship and then goes back and picks it up. Pilot organizations also use helicopters to do the same job. It just depends on the circumstances. So that's been a good niche market for us. This is a photo of 3 boats that we built for the Dutch pilot organization in Rotterdam. If it ain't Dutch, it ain't much. I hope that's not offensive to anyone. What is it? Wooden heads, wooden shoes, wouldn't listen, wouldn't pay. We lived with the Dutch pilots in our offices for about 2 years, and we built 3 amazing boats for them, and we delivered them about 3 years ago. And around the world, people would just go, the Dutch came from Holland to Seattle to have boats built. The guys who think they are God's gift to boat building came to Seattle to have boats built.
We have one Dutchman here, watch out.
Oh, one Flying Dutchman on the loose. And we built really state-of-the-art boats for them, and they were very pleased. So that was pretty much a coup for us, a feather in our cap, if you will. We're also building police boats and fire boats. This is a shot of 3 police boats that we built for SPD over the last 10 years, 15 years. We built whale-watching catamarans in Hawaii. This is the first one we ever built. The largest thing at that time, 65-foot passenger catamaran. Passenger ferries. This is a shot of one of 4 boats that we built for San Francisco, moving people around the harbor all the time. Boat on the upper right is down in Puerto Rico. Boat on the left is an interesting project. It's back east in Cape Cod, New England, fast ferries, back in the Cape area. That's a project where we couldn't deliver the boat on time to meet the customer's needs. And there was another builder that we were competing with on the East Coast that also couldn't build the boat in time to meet the customer's needs. Now, we had an ability to do part of it in time if they could do the other part in time. And we ended up collaborating. We built the hulls, built them in such a way that they could be broken in 2 down the middle, basically, so they could fit on trucks and go cross-country. I think it was a 75-foot catamaran. So we built the hull as fast as we could while we had time and space, shipped them back east, and our partner builder back there finished them and put them together and delivered the boat on time. Search and rescue. This is a shot of one of our current products called the RBM. We build them for police agencies. Yeah?
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
I'm curious about that, just in terms of the fact that you collaborated with them.
Yeah.
Was that your idea, or how did that get
The question is about the collaboration that we did on the last project, on that passenger ferry project. And did we initiate that? How did that happen? Well, part of I'll back up just for just a moment. One of our values is partnering. It comes from the 3 of us being partners, and we learned from long ago through a lot of missteps and mistakes and plus just kind of who we are, that part of something's better than all of nothing, that teaming and partnering is a better relationship with everybody, from employees to suppliers to competitors sometimes. So while the company that we partnered with on this project is normally and today is a competitor of ours, we recognized that it was the only way to deliver a product for that customer if we wanted part of that job. And so it just made sense to us to reach out to that other team and say, look, we can do this part, you can do that part, let's just do it together. And it just made business sense. And it went really well, the customer was happy. And we've done that kind of thing, not splitting boats in half and doing both in both parts of the country, but locally we've done that a number of times. So search and rescue is another part of our product line. We've built a lot of boats for the Navy. This is just 2 pictures. The one in the upper right is a kind of an assault boat. It takes the Marines and gets them to the beach really fast with all of their gear. And we built a run of 40 of those for the Navy a few years ago. The boat in the lower left is a training boat for the SEALs, for the Navy SEALs. We built 2 of those, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And they train their guys in all the things that they train the Navy SEALs in, or some of the things they train them in. And while we don't do yachts, we don't do pleasure boats, I call it before or after tax money. We like to do things with pre-tax money. We like to do things for customers that are spending pre-tax money, which means it's a work boat. It's a write-off. It's a working boat. That's what we focus on. And we stay away from the yacht industry. We were in the yacht industry when we were young and doing fiberglass work. And we learned that customers that are doing projects with after-tax money have different attitudes about things that they want to buy. So we much prefer the pre-tax buyer. So we stick with work boats. These yacht hulls, however, are opportunities that have been presented to us by other yacht builders in the Northwest that come to us and say, I have a customer who wants an aluminum hull. I only know fiberglass. I need an aluminum hull, and it's got to be really good. So they come to us, and we build the aluminum hull, and then they take it away and they finish it out as a yacht for their customer. So it's a great relationship. We get paid a fair price. It's a nice piece of work, and they end up with a beautiful hull and a happy customer. This is a 180-foot yacht with the elevator in the middle. And it was built for the guy that had I think it's the lease on the Twin Towers in New York when they went down. And the boat in the lower right was built for a certain rum magnate out of Puerto Rico, and he uses it to run between Miami and Nassau and go fishing and play. Another part of what we do is hovercraft. We're the only builder of hovercraft in North America that has built a Coast Guard approved and licensed hovercraft. We built 2 of them. The small one on the left is up in the North Slope, doing oil work up there on the North Slope for the oil companies. And the one in the upper right is also up in Alaska. She's 100 feet long, goes about 60 knots. Excuse me. And hovercraft are kind of funny. They're like hockey pucks. You can't steer them, you can't control them, you just go really fast and hope that you don't hit anything. And so we've built those 2 hovercraft, and we're talking with lots of other organizations. But hovercraft are really expensive to build, and they're really expensive to operate. They're unique pieces of equipment, and if you happen to have a job that needs that kind of technology, it's the only thing that will do it. And we're the only builder in North America that does what we do. So we just got to find more customers that are willing to pay the price to buy it and then to take care of it, because they are expensive. But like some of the airports around the country that are on water, imagine a plane that has to ditch. Maybe it's in shallows or marshland. You know, a hovercraft is a perfect thing. You can reach the craft and just fly back up onto the tarmac of the airport if you're nearby. Certain freight companies in the Bay Area are talking to us about hovercraft. Excuse me, can't clear my throat. To move freight around the Bay Area, because today they have to have 2 drivers in each of their trucks, and it's a very expensive process. So hovercraft might be the answer for it. One of the coolest things we've ever done is built submarines. So we built things that fly in the air on the top of the water, and then we build things that go underwater. I can't say too much more about that. But it rips along the top of the water at X knots, and then it'll dive under the water, and then it goes the other direction underwater at about X minus knots, and has certain people in it that do certain things with it. And it's really a cool piece of gear. So it wasn't our initial design, but we took sort of a napkin design and created a really workable, viable craft with it. So we do lots of different things, lots of different products. We're pretty diversified. Some things that set us apart. Of course, our people. We've been blessed with having a cadre of folks over the years that love to do what we do. We build really cool stuff, and so we attract really talented people. We have a very strong in-house design and engineering team. We work in 3D modeling software with SolidWorks primarily. And it's one of the things that is different from anybody else in our space is our own internal team. For many years, we've had 20 to 25 engineers. We've ramped down to about 15 now. But most companies our size and in our marketplace subcontract out all that design and engineering work. And we've decided years ago it gives us strengths that we want to have, so we have it in-house. Helps us be really more responsive to the market and do the high-end stuff that we like to do. Another thing that sets us apart is the complexity of the projects that we do. The more gnarly it is, the more challenging, the more sophisticated the customer, the more sophisticated the need, the mission requirements are, the better we do. If it's run-of-the-mill, straightforward, anybody can build a 30-foot something, we can't compete for that. We don't even try. So it's got to be kind of cool, gnarly, and complex. Another strength that we have in our company is that at any one time, we're always doing lots of different things, which is really challenging, but it gives us diversity in the marketplace that most companies don't have. So this is a snapshot of a couple of years ago. We had all those projects in one state of contract or another, where we were either design and engineering or delivering. And it's maybe a little hard to appreciate, but that's quite a range of products, both in size, complexity, customer, and so on. This is a little pic that I like. It sort of expresses the range of what we do, not everything that we have done, but the range from a little 24-foot, little unique, crazy little tugboat for Ross Lake, for the electric company up there, Seattle City Light up on Ross Lake, to the 180-foot yacht hull that we built. And we deliver our products worldwide. Very, very few of the boats that we've ever built do you actually see locally. There's like 3 police boats, a couple of Coast Guard boats, that dozen oil spill response boats for FOSS. There's a passenger ferry up in the San Juan Islands that we built years ago. And that's about it. Most of what we ship, that we build, is shipped way out of state. A little more sense of what we do. We're fairly diversified, or in a few ways we are. We opened a few years ago our own cutting and metal processing facility in South Park. We decided to be a little more vertically integrated. We didn't know what that term was when we did it, but I've since learned that that's the term that people use, vertical integration. So we bought some amazing equipment from Germany. This is a huge cutting table. It's a router cutting platform. And so now we cut all of our parts. Our engineering team designs and engineers and nests all the parts that we have to cut from flat sheet. And this is an example of, those are all cut parts. And so we have control over the quality and the schedule of deliveries of our cutting. So that's been a big help. It's an expensive part of our business, but we think overall it's an advantage for us. Another piece of our diversification is we have run sort of a leasing company where we've had anywhere from 4 to 6 boats available for lease that we lease to the Navy, survey companies, police forces, any number of different things. And we've sold a couple of those to Nigeria lately. In the last 2 years, we've sold 2 of those to Nigeria. You know the Nigeria scam, right? You get a phone call or you get an email from Nigeria, just hit delete, right? Dr. So-and-so is telling you that he needs you to take his $100 million because otherwise, right, we all know the scam. Well, quick story, we were at a trade show. My partner Keith was at a trade show, and he was approached by a man, his name is Mac. And Mac says, I want some of your boats. Okay? No, I'm serious, I need to buy some of your boats. He's from Nigeria. And he's running escort services, apparently. I don't mean escort service, let me retract that. He's doing patrol and security work for the oil rigs. That's what he says. So he wants to buy one of our boats because he thinks it's perfect, one of our boats like this. And he saw it on the website, or I don't remember how he found out about us. So he approaches Keith at the workboat show and said, that's what I want to do. I want to buy the boat. He said, look, great, send money. Keith comes home from the trade show. He's got a list of 300 contacts, all kinds of things. Mac isn't even on the list. About a month later, we get an email. Mac says, I need to send money. Give me your account number. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, you knew that was coming, right? So we were really smart. We went to our bank and we said, give us a dummy account, give us an account that only somebody can put money into and they can't take it out. Not that hard to do. So we set up that account, we sent that information to Mac, and a week later, $150,000 cash money, US, lands in that account. We have not talked to Mac since that trade show months earlier. We have not one stitch of paper between us. There is nothing but 150 grand sitting in our account, and we're selling the boat for 1.5 million. He's just given us 10% down. And then he follows up with an email. Did you get my money? Yeah. Great. A week or two goes by, another 150 grand shows up. We don't have a contract, we got nothing. And he's filling up this account with money. And I'm thinking to myself, we got to take the money out of the account, put it into our other account before he somehow takes it back somehow. You know? Anyway, it takes a couple of months, but Mac fills up the account with $1.5 million without a single piece of paper between us. We ship the boat to Houston. It goes on a freighter to Nigeria. He bought the boat. And ever since, he's been buying spare engines and all kinds of spares and supplies. And then about 2 years later, about a year ago, he comes back and says, I want to buy another boat. We reopen that account. The money starts flowing in. It was just amazing. So crazy stuff happens. That's our leasing fleet. Let's see. Then I told you about that hovercraft that we built. I showed you that a few minutes ago. Our customer up in Alaska that we built that craft for they needed it to be basically an on-water highway connection between one village and another village. Before the hovercraft went into service, all they had was an airplane to get medical emergencies, medevacs, from the one village to the other village where a 737 could land and they could fly people to Alaska who'd been injured. And too many times over the many, many years, the planes, forced to fly in really bad weather, had crashed, killing all aboard. It happened a couple of times. They couldn't build a road because it's through a sanctuary. The only thing that was deemed to be workable, because there's no infrastructure in this bay, is a hovercraft. So the feds gave them a lot of money, thank you very much. They came to us, we built this amazing hovercraft for them, and they operated it in their environment for several years. But it was difficult to keep it going, not because it's not a great craft, but because it takes a high degree of mechanical skill and expertise to really maintain this craft in the field. So after a few years, about 3 or 4 years, they kind of mothballed it and went back to flying people back and forth. Then they had a chance to move the craft to another location and provide a service from one village to a new airport that was being built. And a hovercraft was again deemed to be the only tool that would make that connection work. So our customer came out to the world and said, we need somebody to run this for us this time. Please bid on that. We, of course, were the experts. We won the contract, and for the last 2 years, we've been running the ferry service for them with 10 people up in Alaska and a full-time manager and administrating that whole operation for them. So that's another part of our business model. Well, I'm sorry?
What isn't a prop boat?
What's wrong with a prop propeller boat?
Yeah.
In that environment up there, there's no infrastructure, there's no docks. There's no place to actually dock it. You could use a propeller boat to get across the water, but there's no dock to tie up to. With the hovercraft, they fly up onto the land. And they can't build docks for lots of other reasons. But that's why the prop boats don't work. In '06 was the main event. I wanted to call it the main event. I called it the big event. It was the award of the biggest contract in the world. Well, no. in boat building history, it was, no. In small aluminum boat marketplace in the United States in the last 20 years, it was the biggest contract ever awarded. At the time, Senator Murray brought us a check, and on the check it said, pay to the order of Kvichak Marine, $600 million. If I really had all that money, I wouldn't be here. I'd be somewhere. Anyway, this was the culmination of, at that time, 5 years of effort to land a major Coast Guard contract to build the 45-foot response boat medium, which you do see a few of them out here in Seattle. That's Keith in a photo. Woo-hoo! And the Senator and the Coast Guard came and made a big presentation one sunny day back in 2006. And that was pretty cool. It didn't turn out to be $600 million. But it was still a pretty good contract. So when we got that, we had to set up a new plant, because our current plant in Seattle, the one on the waterfront there on the ship canal, where the yacht was coming out of it, that's where we build our custom big crazy stuff. We couldn't dedicate a 7 or 8 year product run to this 45-foot boat, so we went down to Kent Valley, we bought a piece of property with some buildings on it, we opened up a shop, and that's where we build them. We got into the detailed design work. This is just one quick snapshot of a model with the 45-foot RBM. Really complex boat, packed tightly with all kinds of equipment. And then we had to build it and demonstrate that it actually could roll over and come back up and keep on ticking, as it were. So I hope this works. I think if I just hold that, no, if I hold that down, I don't know what that's. Oh, hit it once. Oh, shoot. Nope.
Hit the machine, Tim.
Hit the machine. Hit the machine, Tim. Oh yeah, watch. Maybe I can, no. Oh yeah, oh, there it goes. So we had to roll it over in the ship canal. The last time we did that, the boat didn't come back up. That was a bad day. Remember that I told you the first pilot boat we built, the yellow boat that's launching off, that's going that way, it's launching off the waves, that yellow pilot boat? We had to prove to the Columbia River bar pilots that the design would roll over, because down on the bar, boats roll over, and they really wanted it to come back up. So we finished the boat, we had it in the water, we're ready to prove that it'll roll over, and we rolled it over, and it got upside down, and it didn't come back up. And Jim, Brian, and Keith saw our lives flash before our eyes, and it was a few moments of panic. And what had happened is, and I should have this, but anyway, is that when the boat was upside down, the boat wasn't 100% complete. One of the cabinets didn't have the final cabinetry all the way in. It had a loosely tacked piece of plywood over it. Behind that, even though we'd inspected the boat like crazy before we were going to do this crazy rollover stunt, we'd inspected it, but nobody looked behind this little lightweight plywood cover. There was a 40-pound fire extinguisher in there, and when the boat rolled over, it broke through that thin little panel of plywood, fell across the cabin of the boat, and punched a hole through, broke the window in one of the windows that was upside down at the time. And you can see this because we had cameras on the inside, which we were very prescient. They were waterproof cameras, and they were on the inside to record. We had cameras all over the boat. And so you can see this object, when the boat's upside down, you see this object come across, it falls through the camera space, and then you can see it go like that. It gets rejected when it breaks the water, and the water pressure throws it back the other way, and the boat didn't come back up. That was a bad day. But eventually we got it upright, and we fixed it, and it's running down in the Columbia River bar. Anyway, we had to do the same thing here, and so I was a little nervous, because I remember I was on one of the boats just standing off out of this camera shot, just holding my breath, and there was this big burp. And it's similar to what I thought I remembered hearing when we had rolled the boat previously, and I thought, oh my God, it's done, and something's happened again. Anyway, it came up, it was good, it was a good day, and this is the boat in action. It is the most amazing 45-foot patrol boat the world has ever seen. There she is down in the Columbia River bar area, actually, launching off a wave. We've had a couple little bumps in the road. We were basically bankrupt and insolvent in the early 90s. We've been building Bristol Bay gill netters for 3 or 4 years at that point. Remember, I was in charge of the money? Remember, I was a broadcast journalism major? I had no idea what I was doing. But I can't take all the blame because my partners didn't know, one, how much we needed to sell the boat for because we didn't know how much the boat cost, and so we sold boats like crazy. I wonder why they were buying all these amazing boats from us. Our pricing scheme back then was just a little bit cheaper than the other guys. I mean, how do you get started in any business? A little bit cheaper than the other guys, but we're going to build the Cadillac because that's our mindset. We're going to build the best boat we possibly can for a little bit cheaper than the other guys. Well, we had done that for 3 or 4 years, and we were basically bankrupt. One day we woke up, and I realized that I had missed a decimal point. And we had no money to make payroll on that Thursday. We called it Black Thursday. And we had to go out to our employees, probably about 30 of them at the time, and explain that we had no money and we couldn't make payroll. And that was a life-altering experience. They did all come back to work on the following Monday and worked until we were able to scrape it together and come up with pay, which was really nice of them. And we negotiated a 4-year payout with all of our vendors and all our debtors and so on, and we made it all on our own. And I'll never forget our attorneys that we hired, who were the bankruptcy guys, and I never used them ever since. But we were younger then. I'm older now, but we were younger then because this was in '91. And the guy, the lead counsel, looked at me and said, "Ryan, you guys are young enough. You can call it a day, wrap it up, and do something else. You know, leave $500,000-$600,000 in debt behind and bankrupt the company and all that." That's what he thought we should do because that's how bad a straits we were in. And we said, hell no. And we ran around and we worked it out. I was negotiating with 250 creditors. Anyway, we got through it after about 4 years, and that was an event that will forever, in part, shape who we are. Then, what is that, 20 years? That's 10 years later. Geez, we barely got out of one crisis and we were back into another one. In '01, there was the bad aluminum moment, where we had been building boats out of aluminum, as you know, and that first red boat that we built in Hawaii, we got a phone call right before Christmas one year in 2001, and they said, you know, the boat's developing these funny cracks, and not just in 1 or 2 places. We're noticing them all over the boat. This is a $4 million catamaran, the first one of its kind that we had ever built, and we were sure we screwed up. So my partner Jim flies to Hawaii, takes a look. The boat is littered with these cracks. And once again, our life passes before our eyes. We're going, okay, we're out this time for sure. We're down and out. Anyway, a long story short, the aluminum companies that made the aluminum, supposedly it was marine grade. That's what they sold it as, was marine grade aluminum. It wasn't. It was non-marine grade aluminum for reasons I won't bother you with. We had built 42 boats that had bad material in them. We had a shop full of boats under construction that couldn't go another day forward because they were all built of bad aluminum. We were winding down the company. We were out of money. We had no idea what to do. The aluminum companies were not being responsive. We couldn't take any more customer deposits because we knew now that the boats were bad and something was going to have to happen with them. So we actually returned a $350,000 deposit payment we got from Caterpillar because we were in the middle of building the boat. And we were on the waterfront, sitting in one of our boats on the waterfront with our attorney and a PR person. We'd never hired a PR person before, but we did. And they were advising us on how we were going to make the announcement and shutter the doors. And I got a phone call from a company whose name I don't mind mentioning because they did the right thing, from Alcoa. And they stepped in and they did the right thing. They sent us a check the next day. We were able to make payroll, and long workout over 2 or 3 years, but it all turned out pretty well in the end. But only because Alcoa actually did the right thing. There was another company I won't mention that was really the culprit. They stonewalled everything. Eventually, Alcoa beat them in court for an $85 million settlement. So those were two big little bumps along the road. Future, upper left, Brazil. We're kind of keen on Brazil. There's lots of scary stuff about Brazil, but they have a huge need for aluminum, we think, aluminum boats of all shapes and sizes. The challenge is you can't build out of country and ship into country because the tariffs are huge, so you have to build in country. So for the last year and a half, we've been fishing around trying to figure out how to get a toehold. We won a contract with I'll call them a partner in Brazil, partner shipyard in Brazil. Here's where we're partnering again with somebody, informally, not by contract partnership, but just we agree we share the same vision. We're going to build parts of a yacht hull, another yacht hull, for his customer, his Brazilian customer. It's a 160-foot yacht. He wants it in aluminum. Our partner yard in Brazil has never built aluminum. They only build fiberglass. Sound familiar? So we're going to build the aluminum part. They're going to build the fiberglass part, and we're going to deliver this beautiful yacht to this customer down in Brazil. So that's our first foray, and in about 2 months we're going to be sending some of our top guys down to Brazil to work alongside the new workforce that's going to finish putting all the aluminum modules together that we're building here, and we're going to end up with a finished yacht. So that's kind of cool, and we're continuing to look for opportunities there. One of them is to clean up the bay, because they've got a real messy bay, and our skimmer technology can be used to clean it up, and there's a big initiative about that. We might get lucky there. Yes, ma'am? How did we make the connections down in Brazil? Did I mention that we're sailors? Did I mention that? So when I say sailors, we don't day sail. We're racer guys. We've raced boats like Herb. We used to race against Karen's husband Herb for many years. There is, as it happens, one of our close friends here in Seattle grew up in Brazil, in Rio, ended up working for Boeing in a sales capacity in Rio in his mature years, and knows the entire sailing community down there, and speaks fluent Portuguese and all of that, and he knows lots of people. One of his close friends, another yacht racer, is the one that owns the shipyard. The customer of the new yacht is a yacht racer. That's his hobby. His real job is in cars. Very uber wealthy. So our buddy connected the dots, and here we are. Lower left, Alaska. We see lots of opportunity for us again. We have not built a Bristol Bay gillnetter since 1997. We are in contract negotiations with 4 new buyers that want to buy a Kweejack Bristol Bay gillnetter. They're in the sunset years of their fishing, and they want to come back and buy the best boat they can possibly buy to finish out their last 10 years. And they've been twisting our arm trying to get us to build a new Kweejack Bristol Bay gillnetter. And we've been saying no for 2 years. Our lead customer actually walked in about 2 months ago with 3 other guys. Now we got 4 of them that want to buy boats from us, and we're going to build 4 Bristol Bay gillnetters. So that's one way that we're looking back at Alaska again, and the other is the eventual additional exploration in oil that's going to be that Shell and others are going to start pulling out of the ground if they ever get their act together and stop putting their drill rigs on the beach. We're going to be a big part of their oil spill response plan requirements. So that's going to be good for us. Lower right, in the Middle East, we're making a lot of efforts there to sell some of our Coast Guard products in the Middle East. We hope within a year or 2 we're going to have our first, we hope within the next few months we have our first deal done, and I hope that in the next year or 18 months we actually have not a manufacturing facility, but a support team over there with a facility where we're supporting boats that we're starting to deliver into the Middle East. And then the last thing about the future South Carolina, you know, Boeing's done a lot of homework, right, to try to figure out where to start manufacturing planes, and they've been in South Carolina with varying degrees of success. So I put South Carolina on there because every year Seattle doesn't get less expensive to do business in, it gets more expensive. And some things are accelerating that pace of change and cost increases. And so we're having to consider whether or not we can be competitive here in Seattle. So I put South Carolina kind of as a joke because I say to my partners, Boeing's already done the homework. It's obvious that's where we should go. So I'm not sure what a part of that is our future really, but it might happen. We love the Built to Last books. We talk about being a Built to Last company. We talk about decisions that we make are all about long-term future stuff. And about a year ago, coming up in July, we delivered our 500th boat. So this was the logo that we had put together for the T-shirts that we gave to the crew. So I thought I would use it here. It's actually about 550 boats now. And the end. We are almost exactly on time. Yes?
First a comment, I've been an entrepreneur for 21 years and I still don't know vertical integration. So,
Consider yourself lucky, because I think some of those terms like vertical integration, they're textbook things.
My partner said it today and I said you're over my head.
Yeah.
Two questions, because you are in a room of techies. How has technology changed the way you operate, either operationally and or the design process, since particularly early days, and particularly the notion of data analytics, big data? How do you use that either in your design process or your CRM and customer management? So that's one question. The second question, you definitely talked about your international outreach and where you're selling, but you're obviously under price controls and price pressures. How are some of the emerging countries creating competition for you? I mean, you talk about your partnership in Brazil. I'm sure there are wholly owned, companies in Brazil, Russia, China, India that are becoming either, if not today, tomorrow, they'll be direct competitors. And how do you deal with that?
Let me see if I can remember the first one. It's about big data, CRM management, technology. We are generally a fairly low-tech industry. We're probably as technically savvy as anyone in our aluminum boat building industry. That said, SolidWorks 3D modeling tools that we use in engineering are pretty sophisticated. But we don't, one of the difficult things about our industry is there isn't any data to mine. There's big data, forget big data, there's not even tiny data. There's just no market data available about our industry. So that's good and bad, but mostly bad. I wish there was. So we're not terribly technologically driven. We don't have robots in the factory and never will. Everything is by hand, by by experienced craftsmen. So we're pretty low tech. As to your question about competition from emerging countries and their presumed lower cost advantages, the U.S. has still today the Jones Act, which is incredibly important for the shipbuilding industry and for the boat building industry, that prevents foreign-built boats from being used in U.S.-based commerce. So while we see Canadian-built boats competing in our market space a lot, we're not seeing competition from China, Vietnam, South America. We just don't see it yet. And what we build, there's not great volumes and the boats are smaller. Probably our average project is a $2 or $3 million boat. And so I don't know if that would engage everybody. It's not like they're gonna get to build hundreds of something. In the yacht business, it's different. Like in China, Taiwan, and other places, they build yachts, small sailboats and power boats, because you can build a production line of them. But in our market space, that's a very rare thing to have happen. Yes, sir.
So you described kind of your failures and some of those challenges, but how did you guys, when you get together, decide to go big? How did that conversation take place?
How did we decide to go big?
Yeah.
And what to you is when we decided to go big?
You had numerous times. I mean, I would imagine that you said, okay, we're going to go do this. We're going to expand our business. We're going to build a bigger boat. I mean, even for that product line, I'd imagine the parts themselves are in the millions.
Yeah, so I think the question is something about how, as partners, have we decided through the years to go big, to maybe double down, to take on the next big project, or to expand our business and sign the next big lease for the next big building. And yeah, we've been faced with those kinds of expanding decisions annually. And I guess I can answer it in a couple ways maybe, is that one, the three of us are just incredibly fortunate that we are wired as different as we are. We really have some shared core values and ways that we look at the world. And our appetite for risk is very compatible. And so as Herb knows, our personalities are really different. But there's something fundamental about each of us that is very similar. And that allows us to take risks and to make decisions and to do any number of things that we've done over the years as a team. And so, and that only happened out of sheer luck. Most partnerships don't last but a couple of years. We've lasted for 33 years as a three-man partnership. I mean, it's unheard of. So we don't do great analysis of opportunities. We're not the kind of business or the kind of thinkers that do cost-benefit analysis and try to figure out, well, if we expand into this new market, or if we get this new building, or if we make this next big step, this is what will happen. We don't do that. We're very opportunistic. That's how we've grown. Opportunities have come to us and we go, wow, that's cool, that's big, that's gnarly, that's new, that's different. Let's get that and go do it. And we've been pretty successful at just approaching the marketplace that way. Does that answer the question?
That's magic.
It's magic, yeah. It's like waiting for that Guinness. Wait for it, wait. Let the magic happen. Anyway, thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
So that first transition from your gill netters to your skimmers, right?
Yes.
Was it a matter of just being in the right place at the right time? Was there something intrinsically about the shape or size of your gill netter that was similar to the skimmer? Or how did that all happen?
The question is, how did we get so lucky to go from our fishing boat designs into somehow being in the oil spill business? Did we have some magic design that they absolutely had to have, or was something that we were doing already just like what they needed? The very first contract in the oil spill market was those 6 little skiffs for Alyeska. And a boat that we were already building for the fish boat market, a little sailing skiff, happened to be the right product. There were some changes to it that were required, one of which was to move the batteries to a different compartment in the boat. And when we did that, we forgot to put in scuppers so that fresh air can flow through that new battery compartment, because we hadn't thought about it. Oh, you want the batteries there? We'll move the batteries there. No problem. Did it. Ship the boats up to Alyeska. One day I get a phone call. A boat exploded. I'm getting a little off your question. One of our boats exploded. I get on a plane that next morning with our chief engineer, and we fly up to Valdez, and here's what had happened. We had innocently moved the batteries at their request from the place that we had designed them to be into this compartment. And we'd forgotten about putting in ventilation. And one morning, an operator goes down to the boat in this beautiful, pristine little harbor at Valdez. And the battery switch to turn on the batteries is down. Well, there's a windshield, there's a little you feel like you're in a little phone booth. And you're standing there and you got this big diesel engine under you, these big batteries and a lot of horsepower. And the battery switch is down right about there. And the windshield stopped right about there. One day he goes down, this operator, and he turns the battery switch on. Kaboom! Metal, parts of battery, whatever else came flying aft and everywhere else, and took out that windshield and blew right past his head. And if that battery switch had been here, he'd have been dead. It was here, and everything flew right over his head. Anyway, that's a different story. That's how, in some respects, how lucky we've been. But yeah, we happened to have the right product that day, and that got us into a toehold. They liked what we did. They liked how we responded to their need. They liked the customer service. They liked the quality. And next thing you know, they're having us build oil skimmers. But we had to do it really fast, so we did. Thank you for the question. Anything else? Time to wrap it up. Thank you very much for your interest. Thanks for having me here tonight. Appreciate it.